What is up, Facebook land? Welcome to another episode of the Two Dates and a Dash podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kubler. And before I introduce my very special guest and my friend, Lou Tilley, I want to first do a dedication like I always do. Last time was dedication to the Federal Air Marshals that I worked with. This week, I just got back from the University of Akron with my wife, and we were watching my daughter and her Bloomsburg University swimming program compete at the University of Akron against a bunch of Division I teams, and they did very, very well. The boys finished second. The girls finished seventh, but they swam very hard. They swam well. My daughter had an amazing weekend of swimming, and had a lot of NCAA Division II B cuts, which is the qualifying times to make NCAA championships. So we're very, very proud of her, and I just wanted to say congrats to the Bloomsburg Huskies for a job well done and for racing your butts off this past weekend. The podcast, where can you hear the podcast? You can hear it on iTunes. You can hear it on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Radio Public, Castbox, Pocket Cast, Overcast, Breaker, and Anchor. So before I let Lou talk, because he is an amazing orator, I'll leave it at that. I want to tell you a little bit about my relationship with Lou. Lou and I have been friends for about 25 years. We've known each other through the Maxwell Football Club. Back when I was the security director for there, I got to know Lou very, very well. And then when Max Out, my company, became a sponsor, we got to know each other on a different level. And it's been a blast just sort of being his friend and watching his evolution over the last 25 years. Lou has been everywhere. He's worked for CBS 3 in Philadelphia. He's been in Boston. He's been in New York. He's been just about every major city as a news guy, a sports guy. Won Emmys. Transitioned to the Philadelphia when Comcast Sportsnet was first created in Philadelphia. Transitioned to that company. Helped build that. He's had an amazing broadcasting career. And we're also going to talk about what happens when your career sort of just stops, and what do you do with yourself? How do you reinvent yourself? Lou's the emcee, and he produces the television program for the Maxwell Football Club's Awards Gala every year. He's a former Division I football player at Wake Forest. He's one of the guys that founded the Chinese Arena Football League. He did the sports broadcasting for that. Worked for Marty Judge, who's a legendary Philadelphia businessman, the voice of the Philadelphia Soul for the Arena Football Champions, and the president and founder of Lou Tilley Media. So without further ado, my friend, my buddy, Lou Tilley. What's up, buddy?
Thanks. I'm going home now. I'm going to watch the replay of that. That was great.
That's it.
That was longer than some of my sportscasts back when I was on Channel 3.
So what's up, man? How you been?
Good. Really good. Thank you. Probably happiest I've ever been in my life. Feel great. Yeah. And all good. Peaceful place for quite a few years now, I'm happy to say. So
everybody that's from the Philadelphia sports market recognize you from your days as a sports broadcaster on Philadelphia television. I'm going to take everybody back. Let's go back to the early 90s. Yeah, when you had the darker hair and the stash.
Right.
And that beautiful, if you guys didn't check out, go to my page and check out the promo video I did for Lou when he did a commercial with Yuki Washington.
And Michael was in it.
And Michael Barkan, he had to make sure we pointed that out. Right. And I told Michael he can tell me that story when he comes on the show. Right. But let's go back to that time when you got to the city and you were figuring out how to make CBS 3 the main channel everybody watched. What was that like being in Philadelphia at that time?
It was a thrill of a lifetime. It was way back in 1986, and I was all of 28 years old. And back then there was no cable TV, Matt. So it was 3, 6, and 10, and that was it. And the newspapers, for your information. So to give you an idea, right now at Channel 3 on the 11 o'clock news, they probably get about a minute and a half to do the sports. And back then I had 5 minutes most nights.
Wow.
And we really were an enterprising bunch of journalists who were competing against the newspapers every day for fresh material. And that was a thrill. I had been trained at maybe the best local television station and best local market in America in Boston, and followed the news director there to Philly. And I replaced Howard Eskin there. And that was a tough task in itself. But we really distinguished ourselves. And I was very proud of the team I built, which included Yuki Washington, Michael Barkan, Tom Stefakis, who went on to be the president of Comcast Sports, Michelle Murray, who's the head of news down at Comcast Sports right now. Neil Hartman worked with us. We had an amazing group. Jim Cudahy, who runs Mid-Atlantic Sports Network. It was an amazing group. And we really did some damage and had a lot of fun. At 28 years old, back in my hometown, out of the streets of Frankfurt, to pop up on television here at 28 was, I can feel it right now. It was thrilling. And I know it made my mom happy till the day she died, and my dad too. And it was fun. I look back on it now and I appreciate it, I think, more than ever, Matt.
Well, the cool part is that, you know, you were an icon on television, and I got a chance to know Lou Tilley, the sports guy, and I got to know Lou Tilley, the human being. And we're going to talk about both of those people today, because to me, it's very important that people get to know the human behind the person they see on TV. It's there is a person behind that person that lives within, that actually has, you know, the issues that everyone else in the world has, but we don't see that because we see you for 5 minutes or 3 minutes or 2 minutes on TV, and you're known as Lou Tilley, the sports guy. And so when you were at CBS3 and you're building this iconic group of people together, the names you listed are just legends in sports in Philadelphia. Tell me some stories. Tell me some things that people may not know go on during that time period that maybe were not necessarily well known to the sports media.
Yeah. Well, it was the most fun ever because I walked into the Flyers run at the Stanley Cup, which was my favorite team, actually.
Actually, he was no longer here.
Yeah. And they went to 7 games against Edmonton, and they were like the Minutemen from the Civil War, or walking wounded by the end. And we did a half hour of coverage after every single game. Imagine that on Channel 3. We preempted the Tonight Show in order to bring you a half hour of coverage every night after every game, including at Edmonton. Wow, what dedication to sports coverage. What a great sports town. So we're in the Flyer locker room after a big win over the Edmonton Oilers. And if you were ever in the old Spectrum locker room, Matt, it was very, very small and cramped.
It was.
So everyone has crowded in there. And I come jamming in, and it's my one cameraman, an enterprising little guy who was tremendous, named Steve Cecil, and me. And I had my earpiece connected to the home control room. That's it. No monitor, no nothing. So I sit down on one of the little benches, and there's people all around. The camera's over here shooting like at this angle at me, and I'm crammed in here. And I'm with the big Swedish defenseman, Kjell Samuelsson, you might remember. And
yeah.
Next to me. And we can hardly hear each other, so we're leaning in, and I'm interviewing him, and the camera's shooting down. And the whole time, the control room is shouting at the cameraman and me to tighten up, but we can't hear them. So for 5 minutes, the audience in Philadelphia was treated to the live picture of Kjell Samuelsson Schwanz live on TV. and now I just
awesome.
say that it was, you know, the untrimmed version, and no one
awesome.
For a few minutes could figure out what they were looking at. So,
oh my God, I had no idea, dude. You never told me that story. That is the best.
Awesome. And
I can only imagine. What did
Kjell
Kjell say about that afterwards?
I got back to the stage. I had a lot of bloopers, Matt. I screwed up a lot in the early days. I was very nervous at the very beginning, and I had to do a story about the Penn University heavyweight rowers who had won at the Thames. And Diane Allen was my co-anchor, and she said, "Be careful with that story." And I was nervous, and so I read the lead-in like this. You know, it was the eights, Matt, without the guy that calls the stroke, and he is called the what? The
coxswain or coxswain or whatever. Yeah,
coxswain.
I can only imagine how that came out, but I'm sure.
I read the lead and I said, "Congratulations to the Penn Cockless Fours for their great accomplishment at Thames today." Then I stumbled through the rest of it, and I came out. I was sweating bullets, and Diane Allen looks at me and she goes, "And a courageous bunch they are." So those are some.
that's the kind of stuff that no one gets to hear about.
Right.
And those are the things that, like, we can sit and talk about all the great moments of your career, talking to all these great people. But those are the things that, because the polishedness of a sports broadcaster or any news person, that's what we want to know you as. But the fact is that you guys, I mean, with all due respect, you shit the bed sometimes, and that's cool.
God.
It makes you
people
human.
used to think of me as kind of a slick, pretty boy back then. I know, right? I've heard of it
a little bit.
And that's the way Eskin used to try to portray me all the time. But I was actually a very hard-charging, aggressive journalist. You know, the linebacker would come out of me. I was very competitive, and I told all my guys to be that way. And if they couldn't be that way, they couldn't work with me. And some were glad when they didn't, because I was very aggressive, Matt, and I paid some price for that. But I was also a goofball, and I was just as easily to screw. I'll tell you one more story if you want to hear this one.
Please.
And it's funny because all three have a common theme, as you're about to hear. For a while there, I was bumped to the weekends when they moved Yuki up in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to survive, I said I'd like to try to be a news guy. So they stuck me on the morning news on the weekends, 6 a.m. news. Now, Matt, most of my life, I was going to bed at around 3 a.m. Now I had to be into work at 3 a.m. So I was not at my sharpest. As you know, I'm kind of a nocturnal guy.
Yes.
So we're opening the show one morning. It's Amy Caples and I.
Ooh, I remember Amy.
Good friend.
Yep.
And we're on the two shot. You know, the morning you see the both, and we do the headlines back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And she said, "Good morning. There's a shooting in North Philadelphia. We'll have the story." And I said, "There's a fire in South Philly. We'll have a live shot." And she said, "In sports, the Flyers win." And I said, "In the home and garden section this morning, I'll show you how I keep my dick spick and span clean all summer long."
What was it supposed to be?
And I said, "Do I correct it?" And I tried to keep it straight. And I hear her go, and I do a spit take. And for 30 full seconds, we laugh. And finally, the producer's all pissed off because we're supposed to be doing the murder in North Philly. Go to break. Well, it was the home and garden section, Matt. And it was how I keep my deck spick and span clean all summer long.
Right. Deck. Of course, deck.
I said it as clear as can be.
With conviction.
No going back. And sitting right here, I wish I could spin the camera around on my wall, is an email or a telegram that I got from a viewer. It said, "My wife always liked you, but after hearing about your dedication to clean genitalia, she loves you more than ever." So,
dude, see, that's I love those kinds of stories. You know, this show is built around friends.
If I see Amy again tomorrow, she'll
point that out.
Keeping it clean? Yeah.
But I want this show to be about like two dudes or two guys or whatever sitting around talking and sharing stories. And this is the fun stuff that I get to do now on Monday nights from 7, 8 o'clock with my friends on Facebook. So let's go back before you mentioned that the linebacker comes out in you.
Right.
Let's talk about your years growing up in Frankfurt, playing football, when you won that weekly Maxwell Club Mini Max Award.
Right.
And then you went on to play football at Wake Forest. Let's talk about your early years. So growing up in Frankfurt, tell us about that.
Well, you know, it's not unlike a lot of kids, but it was a hard scrabble neighborhood. And my mom, God bless her, who had me when she was just 18, she and my dad were both high school kids. And you know, it didn't work out. My dad was gone by the time I was 6, and my mother was left with 4 kids to raise herself. And there weren't opportunities for women like there are now. There wasn't education, and there was a stigma being divorced and that young. And she had a tough fight, man. And I don't know how she did it when I look back on it. And football was a blessing for me as I had a lot to do as a kid. She worked 16 hours a day, Matt. I'm not exaggerating. 16 hours a day. And my chief job was to get dinner ready and clean it up and get the girls washed up and into bed and get my little brother Glenn washed up and into bed and get him up in the morning and get him off to school. And I did that for a long time. And I didn't have a lot of friends, didn't have time for it. And I found sports at 9th grade, pretty late in life, actually. And I dove into it. I found a spot for me. And no one had ever mentioned college. It wasn't like it is now, Matt. No one ever mentioned colleges. There weren't counselors at the high school and all that crap. And there was nobody in my family had ever gone to college, period. And all of a sudden, in the second semester of my junior year, my football coach, Bill Bernardo, who's a saint to me, calls me into his office and he said, "Look, you got to really buckle down now in school. You got to really make these grades work." And he said, "You see all these envelopes here?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "These are all from colleges that want to talk to you about playing football at their." And Matt, that was the first time I ever thought about it. Didn't even think about college. This is 1974. Wow. Never thought about it. And I saw those envelopes, and I had a very good senior year, and I had the opportunity to go to some great and special places. And somehow I now realize that God directed me to this little school down south. I never even heard of Wake Forest. Well, I did hear of Wake Forest. It turned out, this is a great story, Matt. All the coaches are calling me and inviting me to come to their school, including Michigan, Duke, some great schools, Virginia. And the Wake Forest coach calls me one night, and my little sister answers the phone. There's only one phone. She said, "Louis, there's another phone call from you from the football coach at Wake Forest." And I get on the phone, and they chit-chat you, Matt. They just chit-chat you. "Lou, who's your favorite athlete?" Thinking I'd say some football player. And I said, "Arnold Palmer." Now, for a kid growing up in Frankfurt in 1973, 74, to say a golfer was probably very surprising. And the coach said, "Oh, okay. Well, take care. I'll talk to you tomorrow." And the next night, the phone rang, Matt, and I picked up the phone. It was Arnold Palmer.
Oh, my God.
And to the day he died, he was my hero, and he still is. And again, if you could see right over there, I've got an autographed picture from Arnie. He was a friend to me to the end, and that's the way Wake Forest is. It's the smallest Division I school in America with only 4,000 students. When we went to the Orange Bowl in 2007, when we won the ACC, hell must have frozen over for us to win the ACC. And Arnie hosted a tailgate party at an RV down in Miami, and all the guys were there. Tim Duncan, Tyrone Bogues, Arnie, Curtis Strange, Jay Haas, my classmates, but my football guys, we lost the first game of my freshman year, Matt, and we lost this, and we won the first game of my freshman year. We won the last game of my sophomore year, and in between, we lost 22 games in a row.
Wow.
And you talk about lessons in life. And for all of us to remain friends to this day as we have, and to have gathered together at the Orange Bowl like that was very, very special. And I was a very lucky kid to get down there. Very lucky guy. Still am. Very
and
important.
I'm sure, what I do know about Wake is their educational component to that university is second to none.
Right.
Everybody I know that ever sent a kid there said that the education they got was amazing. And I think, when you think about your 4 years there, playing football and the relationships you made, but the fact that you took the degree that you got and turned it into this lifetime that started with football and got you into the sports world and made you an icon in a city is pretty amazing.
Well, there's another I don't know if I've ever told you this, Matt, but I was a senior, and by then I was 6'3", 230. It was really good size for a linebacker even now. And it was starting to come around. And I was beginning to think, I got it, man. I got it. I'm on track. I'm getting letters now from the NFL. And again, in the blink of an eye, Matt, I'm moving to my left on a goal line play. I jump over one of my own guys. I plant my left leg. And in that instant, the tight end came down the line and drove through my leg in the opposite direction and snapped it in half sideways. And I tore all 4 ligaments that hold you together on my femoral artery. Now, the kid at Central Florida a couple of weeks ago, the quarterback, just had the same injury. Almost never happens. It's called a total dislocation, and he almost lost his leg. And this is 1977, and they had to rush me to the hospital and have a transfusion ready, and they did 5 days of vascular surgery in order to save my leg. And then they put me together with cadaver ligaments, and that's when Wake Forest came through for me. That's when they earned their stripes. because they didn't just let me go. And I wanted to crawl into a hole, Matt, which I almost did 8 years ago. And they wouldn't let me. They knocked on my door, and professors that I didn't even know knew my name came to my room. I missed 2 semesters of school with follow-up surgeries. And these professors came and they drew me out. When I got back into class, they made me speak up. They made me participate. They made me gain some confidence that I'm not some dumb jock, that I could speak effectively. And that's when I became a broadcaster. And that's when I found myself, sort of.
Wow. I never knew. I mean, I knew that you had your knee issues when we talked about, getting older and how your knees were bothering you and all that stuff, but I had no idea about that story. That's amazing. And then just the second part of that story about how Wake Forest, they took your back, man. They I named my company I Got You, because everybody says that whenever I walked in the room, they knew I had their back.
Right.
And somebody's got your back, and somebody's going to be there for you. It's that reassurance feeling of I'm going to be okay. And I think that's pretty cool that Wake Forest did that for you, because you don't hear those kinds of stories, especially not from a major D1 program.
Right.
They shuffle kids in and out of there like cattle.
Correct.
So that's cool to hear. That's really cool to hear. All right. So that we're out of your youth. You graduated college. You did your career as a broadcaster in Philadelphia. You decide that there's an opportunity to start a new Comcast Sportsnet, a new cable show, a sports program, and there's an opportunity there. Let's talk about how that opportunity went, how it was presented to you, and then how that ultimately may not have played out the way that you expected it to.
Right. I had reascended into the lead chair in sports at Channel 3 in the late 90s, and Yuki then moved into news. Worked out pretty good, Yuke.
Yeah, he's still there.
Worked out pretty good. And all of a sudden, Comcast Sportsnet was starting up, and boy, now you look at what's happening there, but they started a huge newsroom with, I think, 50, 60 full-time people. And the whole core of my team, Tom Stefakis, Neil Hartman, Michael Barkan, Jim Ruling, Michelle Murray, all left, Jim Cudahy, all left to start the operation there. And I wanted to, but I still had a year to go, better part of a year to go on my contract with Channel 3. And I thought they would renew, and I was making a lot of money. And at the end of it, they did not renew. And now I was making no money. Fortunately, Tom and the rest gave me some shots as a freelancer at Comcast Sportsnet. And during this period, the idea of CN8, the Comcast network, a parallel network, which was fully rounded in programming, not just sports, sprang up. But they wanted to do a strong sports division. And I was offered the opportunity to be the executive producer, not just the talking head, but to start up that division. And that was very, very, very tempting. And that's the direction I took.
Right.
I might have gone in the wrong direction.
Well, here's, we've talked and we're going to get into this, but you and I have had some deep, deep conversations.
Right.
About life, about faith, about why are we put into these situations, and why do these challenges present themselves, and what do they mean?
Right.
So you had this challenge, you went to CN8, and it didn't necessarily take you to a whole nother second level of your career that, propelled you to another level. It kind of just sort of happened, and then it ended. Let's talk about the ending. What happened with CN8 and the transition out of full-time broadcasting? Well,
as it turned out, it was a great opportunity, because at CN8 we had to develop it from the ground up, and and as an executive producer, I had to make the business deals, and I wound up marketing my program nationally by the end. And little did I know that I was on the right path there. And I had to learn the business side of things, and I had to learn how to construct programming to suit the viewer, not the other way around. So that was good, and I was enjoying it. Plus, we had our own live division. So on the weekends, I was back to doing play-by-play and color of college football and college basketball and boxing. And, man, we had all the toys. I was having a ball. And here comes 2008, and the recession is right around the corner. And I guess the broadcast people know it before anyone does, because revenues start to dry up in advertising. So they called all the managers in and they said, look, we're going to have to cut back on a bunch of staff and you're going to have to fire a lot of people. And they start training me and other people on how we were going to fire these people on this big day. And here comes the big day. And the night before, they write me and say, we need you to come in an hour before the big announcements. Okay. So I come in and I walk in the room and there's two guys in there I've never seen before with a big files on top of them, in front of them, on top of the table. And I right away, this is my words, Brian. I went, no. And sure enough, they fired me.
Wow.
Yeah. These were after documented promises of a great future and a new contract, but that hurt. That stung. That was rough. And that led to I'm thinking, okay, the phone's going to ring again. I'm 48 years old. I'm a big upside here. I've got a great tape. I know everybody. Phone's going to ring again. Phone didn't ring again. I was very lucky. Comcast tried to help me. They let me freelance in New York at Sportsnet New York and down at Sportsnet Washington, D.C. And Matt, I spent 2 years driving back and forth to Manhattan every day, because you can't afford to stay overnight up there for the money I was making, or you're working for free.
Right.
And not coincidentally, and you know this, and I'll share this, my personal life was falling apart at the same time. It was the perfect storm. So essentially, I go 2 years without a real paycheck coming in, and my wife leaving, and the stock market crashes. Woo! And when you're a man, that's hard. And I'm not sure which was worse, that in 2008 or the leg snapped in half and lying there needing a transfusion in the 70s. But they were very similar experiences, Matt. Very similar.
I know. I remember that time a lot. And we had some conversations during some drinks.
Right.
And I remember you were kind of a broken guy. You didn't know why it happened. You didn't know why you deserved to have all this just sort of all fall out at once. And I remember conversations where we would sit down and go but there's got to be a reason. There's got to be a
right.
I don't think God was really in your life as big of a role in your life as he is today. And I think we may have had some faith talks and discussing how God doesn't mess up and he's always got a plan. And if you just open your eyes and open your heart to some things, that things sort of present themselves and things have, you weren't left abandoned. You were just put through some troubles and some trials and some tribulations that you had to sort of get through in order to look back on the journey you took in order to get to where you are today. And I tell people all the time when, I wrote a book, and writing a book to me wasn't because I wanted to write a book. I wrote a book because I was so brokenhearted over my brother's death. Mm. And for 13 years, I didn't love or feel anything. I had no ability to connect with another person outside of being just angry and pissed off all the time. And I had a moment of grace from God that allowed me to open up my heart. And I wrote all night long one night, just everything in my life that I needed to write. And that turned into the book. So I had my moment where I went through the darkness and I came out. And I think, having been your friend for all these years and been through this process with you on some level, that I see your transformational life happen where you went from, the very top and you've admitted it yourself. You were the pretty boy news guy. Everybody knew you. You lived the nocturnal life, which, meant you were out a lot and you had a very well publicized life as a celebrity. And then when you're not a celebrity anymore, I've never been one, but I would only imagine not being on TV every day and not being the most noticeable person every day, you kind of feel like, what the hell just happened? Like the world just falls out from underneath you. And for me, having sat across from tables and on chairs next to you and talked about this stuff, I think a lot of people want to know, what was it like to be at that moment where you feel like rock bottom is just hit after being at the top?
Well, man, I mentioned that when I was lying in my dorm room all by myself in a cast up to my hip for better part of 6 months, I should have connected the dots. And what did I just tell you when I told you that story? That people knocked on my door. I didn't reach out. They came to me and they pulled me out. And then I took all the credit for it. And this was the same thing. And I did the same thing. I went back into the rabbit hole, especially when the wife and the family left the house. I was literally left in the house alone and, losing money. Like, I thought I was going to lose the house. And I didn't connect the dots, Matt, and I didn't reach out. There's a very famous photo, as you know, or a picture, as you know, a painting of Jesus at a door. And the debate always rages, did he open it for you or did you open it for him? And in truth, Matt, television, because of the way I grew up, my mom didn't have time to get us to church. And so there's a parable in the Bible about Jesus telling us to build a house on a strong foundation, because if you build your house on sand, it'll surely wash away. And the parallels, that house that I was hiding in 2010 was a 7,000 square foot edifice to myself that I had built on 4 acres. And how good was it when I was all alone in that house, not able to afford it, and in danger of total bankruptcy and totally depressed. And so I clearly did not have my foundation. And there are other men that do this. It's not just TV guys, Matt. It's guys who get all muscled up and think they're the best thing in the world. And especially it's young guys that get money in their pocket for the first time ever, and they think they're kings of the world. They're all going to have their day. We know that now.
Yeah.
And that's the measure. But in my case, Matt, it was quite dramatic. God always does things to me in very dramatic ways, like the football injury. It wasn't like, I tore one ligament and maybe I'd come back. And in this case, there was no coming back, I don't think either. In this case, what happened was one of my stepchildren was graduating from St. Norbert's school, where he and his sister had gone from first grade till 8th grade. And I frankly wasn't invited to it. But I felt like I needed to be there for him to see me. And I'm in the lunchroom, the little lunchroom there where I'd attended so many of their functions, little ice cream parties. And I'd always sensed in this place something really good and special about this place and about the people and the parents there. And I had this strong feeling that if I didn't reach out right then and there, Matt, before that day was over, to the other parents, I would never see them again. And something told me that would be a big mistake. So I turned to the man standing next to me who, like me, was a former athlete at Villanova. I'll name him. His name's Joe Corcoran. We played basketball together. A guy like you. Successful businessman. But I knew that he was heavily, and I stuck my hand out to Joe and I said, my intention, Matt, was to say, Joe, I'd like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you. I need some help. I was going to reach out, Matt. So I'd like to talk to you. And that was my intention. And I took his hand. He looked in my eyes. And instead, I started crying like a baby. And I walked outside. And he followed me. And he put his arm around me. And he goes, I've been waiting for you to talk to me.
Wow.
He said, if you mean it, meet me at Manella's tomorrow morning for breakfast. And I did. And he said, you know what I'm going to tell you? And I said, I think I do. And he said, are you ready? And I said, yep, I am. And that was the day I started to become a Christian. And it changed.
That's powerful, man.
And it changed my life.
It's amazing, man. You just think about that when you can look back on your journey. And that's the beautiful part about life, is when you have the opportunity to clearly look back and
Yep.
watch the journey unfold again after you've already lived it, and look back on it and go, honestly, how did it happen? And you watch that nothing is individualized. There's no moments that just stand out on their own and live out there. Every one is connected to another.
Right.
And that's the cool part, is that when everybody gets a chance to do that, I did it when I wrote the book, and I thought everything in my life was just in shambles, and it meant nothing. And I was, why me? And I was in the worst place I could possibly be. I couldn't love my wife. I couldn't love my child. I just had another child. And thank God, God intervened, because I was going down a place where I was never going to come back from.
Right.
And when you can go back and look honestly through clear lenses and look at your life in its totality and see how it all connects and put you to where you are today. And then as you're moving forward, because once you do that, looking forward and seeing the opportunities and seeing the doors that are opening for you, or the ones that you're being led to open, becomes a whole lot easier. Because you're not living in this blind space.
Remember what I said at the beginning of the thing, Matt, when you said, how you doing? I said, never better, never more peaceful, never happier. Yeah. And that's 9.5 years now. I can tell you the day.
Well, we sat in your office. And we talked about it.
Right.
And I didn't know that story, but I remember you were telling me that there was a defining moment that led you to this sense of peace. And we didn't go into whole details, but you felt that you were in a place where you could be at peace and just sort of be you.
Yeah, be me. For the first time, I was me. I found me. And I almost remembered what I felt like as a little boy. And I liked that guy. And that's pretty much the guy I've been ever since.
And I remember the fact you just said that. And I don't know if you remember, but we're sitting in your office when the one at Judge's place, Marty Judge's place,
right,
in Conshohocken, and we had a meeting. We're talking about something with Max out in the Maxwell Club, and I said to you, because we're talking, I said, hey, you look different, you look better,
right?
And you said, I'm finally at peace, and I said, I like this Lou,
right? I remember.
I like this guy. This is a guy that there's no more pretense. There's no more what does my image look like that I have to keep up. Right. In order to maintain my status. You were just Lou. And I don't want to put this whole spin on it, but that's ultimately in life, this show. And what I'm trying to do is paint a picture for people that no matter who you are, whether you're a soldier who was in Delta Force, or you're Vince Papale, and we can talk about the whole Vince Papale Lou Tilley relationship. I mean, you guys have known each other forever.
Right.
Everybody's got a human side. Everybody's got struggles. Everybody's got problems. Everybody's overcome something. Right. And it's not some 30 for 30 stuff all the time. Sometimes it's just life, and it gets to you.
Yep.
And I think it's amazing that we're able to sit here on the show and talk about that. So thank you for being candid with that.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to liven it up though. We're going to liven this up a little bit. So you and I have shared a lot of behind the scene moments with the Maxwell Football Club. I, as the security guy, was responsible for getting every athlete to every one of their interviews.
Okay, I know where we're going.
And one in particular,
was
iconic for me, and I don't think it's ever happened to you or him before.
No.
But Peyton Manning, when he won the Maxwell Award, had a very candid conversation with you prior to and during his interview. Would you like to maybe touch on that a little bit?
A little backstory. We at CN8 it was the beginning of my television association with Maxwell. We decided we were going to air it, an hour-long version of it on CN8. So we became the official media partner of the Maxwell Club. Ron Jaworski, Mark Walpert, you. And so we had backstage access to all the winners. And we set up 2 cameras, NFL film style. We would sit down the guys and do, 5-minute good football talk. We're not putting anybody on the spot. They're our guests. I just want to talk football. And so Manning was there. And it's not like he wasn't there or he was on the run. We knew he was in the hotel. And Mark Walpert informed Peyton that as part of the event that he would be interviewed by the house media team. That's me. And we couldn't get him out of his room. And you said you'd go get him. And you did. And you delivered, as you always did. I mean,
thanks,
above and beyond the call. It was amazing to me at the time that you pulled that off. And I was sitting there waiting. So he comes down And at that point, I mean, you've gone through this before. They show up and they see you, and then they realize you're a person, and usually they get human, and it goes fine. But not him. He let it be known that he was pissed off and annoyed that he had to do this. And he wasn't even looking at me, Matt. He was looking at you and said, what is this? You brought me down here to do this? What is this shit? I'm going to give this guy 3 questions, and then I'm out of here. Like I'm not even in the room.
Right.
So something snapped in me. And he sits down. He sits down. He turns on the Peyton smile that everybody knows. The camera on. And he goes, okay, what would you like to talk about? I said, Peyton, what more can you do, softball? What more can you do in your career to exceed the year you've had? And he gives me the beautiful softball answer. Mm-hmm. I said, well, I was thinking, Peyton, maybe you'd like to work out more in the snow in New England, so maybe you win the game one of these years against the Patriots. I can't believe I did it. It was terrible. It was terrible.
But his reaction was priceless.
Oh, he was pissed. And he got up and walked off. And that would have been bad enough. But now we're doing the dinner, Matt. And remember back then we had like a head table, a dais. Yep. And I'm sitting next to the podium because I'm the MC. And now I guess Peyton figures it out that he just blew off the MC. And I could have killed him, up on the podium with 3 hours of ad libs at my disposal. So he comes up behind me. I didn't even see him. He rubs my shoulders and he goes, hey, man, I just want to tell you, I want to tell you, I really feel bad. I had a long day. I got a contract going and I want to apologize. That wasn't me. And I said, sure. We did the program. I didn't say a bad thing about it. But after that, Matt, our buddy was there, Tommy McDonald, who just passed away, and the greatest guy in the history of Philadelphia football, right? And he still had his wits about him at the time, and he was a lovely guy. And this guy won the Maxwell. He was a Maxwell winner. And I saw a moment. I was walking back to my room, and Tommy was walking with me with his lovely wife, and here comes Peyton in the opposite direction. And Tommy stops him and says, hey, Peyton, congratulations. I'm a former Maxwell winner. Would you sign my ball for me? And he blew him off. And that pissed me off. So I was writing a column for suburban newspapers back then. And I wrote the story.
I remember.
Not realizing, I guess, or not thinking, but back then he had a publicist who gathered everything ever written or said about him and would deliver it to Peyton. And more importantly, to Archie, his dad. And a couple of days later, I get a phone call from Ron Jaworski and says, boy, Archie wants to talk to you. And Archie Manning called me and apologized. I don't know if you knew that part of the story.
Well, the same event, and I'll add this. I went to get a football set, and Archie was there, and Peyton wouldn't sign. And Peyton pulled him into the room and basically said to him, you're going to sign that goddamn football. These guys are security guys. They're not getting paid to do this. They're volunteers. You're going to sign the goddamn footballs. You're going to sign any football that comes in front of you. So Archie is literally a god in my book because he did the impossible.
And Eli's great. I covered Eli.
Eli was awesome too. Absolutely.
And you know what? A couple years later, as you remember, at the Revel, that's about 5 years ago, Peyton came back. Mm-hmm. And sat up on the stage with me and did a beautiful one-on-one. And afterwards, he didn't apologize, but he was great. So he definitely got back to being a normal person. Right. But that was literally one of the most memorable of the 24 years I've been involved with the club. That was one of the most memorable things I've never seen anything like it. But what did I just say about, as a Christian, we change.
Yeah, we evolve. And I think, and hopefully I think the person that when the cameras come on that you would see with Peyton Manning, that's actually more of who he is than the jerk off who disrespected you and disrespected me. I'd like to think so.
It's Tommy though. Yeah.
And Tommy, and for people that don't know Tommy McDonald, his son, Tommy Jr. is a lieutenant, I believe, or captain with the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department. He's from the area, lived in King of Prussia his whole life, Heisman winner, Maxwell winner, national champion, world champion for the Eagles, one of the greatest human beings I've ever known, and he passed this year, shortly after his wife Patty had passed, or his wife had passed shortly after Tommy had passed, or was it vice versa? No, Tommy had just passed. So I don't think anyone should ever be mean to anybody, but Tommy McDonald was literally.
Yeah, that's what really upset me.
He was gold. I mean, he would do things. He chest bumped Charles Barkley. I mean, like he's that guy.
I mean, that's what's special about Philadelphia, Matt. Listen, I worked in Boston, New York, Baltimore, Washington, very parallel cities, you would think. Nothing like this town. Nothing.
No.
Nothing. It's unique. I try to tell people all around the country, and they can't buy it because they're going to turn on the TV tonight, and the Eagles fans are going to boo at some point, and they'll make the typical wisecrack by the announcers, and here we go again. But they don't know what a family we are here. It's the biggest little city in America. It's really something else.
It's a city of neighborhoods.
Which is why I stayed. This is why I stayed. Yeah.
So let's talk about Lou Tilley Media. Let's talk about how you resurrected your career in a completely different path.
Right.
Some of the projects you're doing, and how, of all places, China.
Well, you mentioned Marty Judge, and it wasn't the same Maxwell, but I was out of the business for about 3 years, and Ron said, why don't you come MC the Maxwell, get you some exposure, maybe you'll meet some people. And I'm doing it, and there's this guy in the front row, and he's fist pumping and giving me the thumbs up through the whole show, and it really kept my energy up. And afterwards, the next morning, I get a phone call, and he said, I'd like to meet you. You did a great job. Have breakfast with me. And it turns out to be businessman Marty Judge, who was the main sponsor of the Maxwells. And I told him my story, Matt, because I'd just gone through the Christian conversion, and I was opening up my heart. I was on fire. And he said to me, you need to start your own business. And I said, what? I don't know business. He said, you come to my company. I'll give you an office. I'll give you a little salary so you can pay some bills. And I'll give you a year. And you'll meet my attorneys. You'll meet my other business lieutenants. You'll learn how to do business. You can use our accounting department. You can talk to Katie, my COO. You can learn about business. What a unbelievable gesture. And for 3 or 4 years, I started to build my business primarily by producing the Philadelphia Soul games. And when I say producing, what people don't understand, there's 35 people that work together in order to put those games on TV. I put that crew together now. And I transitioned into a guy that understands every nut and bolt behind the scenes, no longer just the reader. I still do the games because I'm good and I charge the right price. And I can produce the game while I'm on TV. So if something's going wrong, no one's going to know better than I.
Right.
So anyways, Marty and I are happily going down this road together, and I introduced him to sports. He loved it. I introduced him to the Soul. He bought a piece of the Soul. So now he's getting up and he's established his business. He loves sports. What else can we do in sports? I said, don't you have a division in China? He said, yeah. I said, what are they doing in China? There's no football in China. Marty says, we're going to do football in China. And within 6 years, we did. And I dove in almost entirely into that. I had to. There's no other way to do it. I went there 28 times, Matt. At one point, I spent 14 straight weeks over there. That's when we had our one season, short little 7-week season back in 2016. And my division did it all. And it was probably the best thing I ever did in my professional career. We had crowds of 7,000 or 8,000 people in the arenas. We were televised. I televised it live in Mandarin, all across national TV in China, and back to the United States at the same time in English. Bilingual in graphics and in audio. We got a huge viral hit all across the world. If it weren't China, we would have been a huge success. And maybe we still will. But boy, I'm telling you, that is a tough place to do business. Hardest thing I ever did. On that trip, Matt, that I was talking about, I usually weigh in, when I play 230, usually I'm around 210. When I came back from that trip, I was 190. I hadn't been 190, Matt, since, I think, 9th grade. It was 190. You saw what happened to me. I had the Bill Clinton. Yeah. It really took years off my life. But what a great experience, and all thanks to Marty. And finally, Marty got a little tired of the effort, and backed off the gas around the first of this year. And he's still helping me make the transition right now. But we're very excited about 2019 because what I'm getting at, Matt, is everything I learned about stadium operations, sales, sponsorship, production, network contacts in China. We're going back, and we're going to be marketing United States sports into China on those same networks that I made relationships with, which is everything in China. And we're going to launch a pro rugby league in 2019 in the United States, along with David Newey, who was
I was about to say, is David with you on that?
one of the great rugby players internationally of all time. His son Noah is playing for the St. Joe's Hawks, and we televised 2 of the St. Joe's Hawks games this year as sort of a warm-up to get a feel for it. And it's just going to be very exciting. We're going to have 12 teams in the U.S., thank God. And I'm boning up on my play-by-play rugby, Matt. It's hard.
I think the only thing I know of rugby is scrum.
Well, it's the football and rugby used to be the same game, and then they hit a fork in the road and went slightly different directions. But the similarities are amazing, and I'm really excited about it. I can't wait because I get to teach, I get to educate, I get to entertain, I get to develop a whole new business again. And that's what I've really come to love. And that's what China did for me and what Marty did for me.
Dude, the energy that you're talking about, because when I started Max out with Jason, I'm a cop. I'm a Pottstown high school graduate, didn't go to college. And now I'm the COO VP of a company that I put some money into it, but I'm not the money guy. I'm certainly not the business guy. I'm not a sales guy. I'm the get shit done guy. And I never knew what I didn't know until I didn't know it. Right. I had to learn it.
Right.
And I had to teach myself or have someone show me how in every aspect of business. And when you learn how a business runs and you understand, even though as much as I hate spreadsheets and Jason knows it, the P&Ls and all that stuff, I have to know about those things because I'm an owner in a business, and I had to learn about, from when we tried to franchise and learning about franchising. I mean, I know so much more about business after the last 10 years of starting a business during a recession, which is stupid as hell. And then, we sponsored a Maxwell. I mean, there's so many things that happened during these 10 years that I now consider myself a businessman, and I can make business decisions because I know exactly what goes into it. And I see that same entrepreneurial spark in you,
right?
Where you're like, I'm in control of myself now.
It's great. And I should also mention that I'm a equity partner in my brother's company, and the brother I talked about from when I was a little kid. We are tight as twins. He started Defend Your Head, which is a helmet product, because we're nothing without football, Matt. Because Glenn came behind me, went to Princeton, captain of the team there. So proud of him, entrepreneur, self-made man, terrific businessman. And now I get to work with him and help him and market and promote. And he sits in this living room behind me 2 nights a week. He lives in Baltimore, but the company's up here. So he comes up and he stays with me twice a week. And if we get to bed before midnight, we're lucky. And all we're talking about is business and how we can make Defend Your Head better and how we can save football, because it's been our lives. And I'm so grateful for it and so happy that I'm still in that world. It's come full circle, Matt. It's a great time in my life. It really is.
Well, I can tell you this, brother. First of all, Defend Your Head is a great product. It's a revolutionary way of protecting kids' brains from concussions without having to buy all new helmets. And I think that's the cool part.
Right.
Yeah. It's as far as if you're looking for your niche. I mean, that's it right there. How do you do it affordably, but yet make it effective?
The guys in the company, John Lockery, Boston College quarterback. He's the uncle of Matt Ryan and Matt McGlinchey. He was my brother's quarterback at Penn Charter. John Zaglinski, my teammate at Wake Forest, Philadelphian, who was just inducted into the Wake Forest Hall of Fame, and I'm going to have the honor of presenting him and introducing him at the Hall of Fame banquet. Ziggy works his butt off. His sons were Philadelphia legends. John Roman, former New York Jet. Billy Osborne, our friend from Maxwell in the pit, Panther great. These are all guys that owe their whole lives to the opportunities that football gave them. And that's the story that needs to get out there again, and not just And look at me, Matt. It's not just head injuries. I almost lost my damn leg, if not my life, to the game. Yeah. It's a tough sport. It's not for everybody. But boy, if you can play it and survive it, it sets you apart a little bit.
Well, it's a warrior sport. And when you have that gladiator warrior mentality in life, you don't back down from opportunities. You don't back down from challenges. You don't back down from when people step up and say, no, you can't do that. You find a way either through, around, or over to get there. And I think where you're at today, and I'll say it again, like I said it 10 years ago, I like this Lou Tilley. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of where you've come from.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited to see where Lou Tilley Media goes, where these opportunities grow and prosper, and the journey that you're on, that you're attentive to it. And I tell my kids all the time, be intentional in what you're doing. Do it with intent. Don't just wing it. Don't just haphazardly go through your day. Intentionally live your life. Have a plan. Do something that you every day go, I know what today is going to bring me. There may be surprises along the way, but I know what my plan is for today because I'm intentionally living it. And I think you've done that. I think you're starting to intentionally live your life that you're destined to be through all your experiences that you've accumulated from Frankfurt through CBS 3, through CNA, through the bottom falling out to China, everything. That this is all a connective path of learning for Lou. And I love that. I freaking love it.
And Jesus, I mean, with God laughs at plans, right? I've learned that one too. And intentionally, right? But you're going to hit potholes and roadblocks, and piano could drop out of the sky, and you learn to accept that. That's important too. You learn to accept 100%. That. That's part of the fun. It is.
I 100% agree. I think that the days when I feel like I just didn't live it the right way, or things didn't work out the way I wanted it to, they make me excited for tomorrow, because I know tomorrow can't be the same. It's not going to be exactly the same. And I think that's the thing that I enjoy most about life, and what I'm loving about doing this podcast and speaking and teaching kids and mentoring kids and doing all that stuff. I just love the excitement that I can bring daily, because I've lived. When you've lived your life, and you know that you've lived your life.
Yeah. It's
not like you're still wanting to live your life. I've lived. I'm okay with everything, man. There's nothing that I can't handle, because it's all been there already.
Right.
And I love that knowledge that I'm there.
That's
in my life and that moving forward.
That's peace. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, brother, I just wanted to say I love you. I appreciate you coming on the show before the Eagles game. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with my faithful listeners for the podcast?
Yeah. Honor your body. Be dedicated to it. Take care of it. I'm distressed at the physical condition of the nation right now. If I could get up on a soapbox and preach, I would. I just saw where the lifetime expectancy of the United States citizen has gone down for the 8th year in a row. We're the 29th in the world order. And I think you and I, aside from the opioid crisis, which is not to be disdained, but the physical condition leading to heart disease and diabetes and stuff right now, it's an alarming level. And I've never eaten better and taken better care of myself. We all need to do that, because let's live a good long life, and let's live it healthfully. How about that for a message out of nowhere?
I like it. You caught me off guard, but I love it. It's a great way to end the show.
Right.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, I am Matt Kubler, your host of the 2 Dates in the Dash podcast, and our special guest has been Lou Tilley, the incomparable Louis
Thanks.
Tilley.
Thanks. You too.
God bless. Take care, and for God's sakes, be kind to one another.